Before we get to some of the economic news, including Greece, let's stay on this story about Iran and how this is going to impact oil prices. You saw kind of an interesting movement where oil prices initially dropped, but then kind of came back up, knowing that this is a long haul for Iran to normalize its oil operations.
It is, Betty, and also let's remember that the oil market has been setting up for this deal. Prices have come back down to the low 50s on WTI in expectation of this deal. And what you're seeing is a very sort of normal, orderly market reaction.
Mohamed, talk about gunboat diplomacy. What does that mean in the current context of world economies such as Greece?
So in history, gunboat diplomacy is this notion that debtors are forced to accept conditions by a gunboat standing outside their waters. It has happened many times, and it has tended to fail because the ownership of the reforms are not with those who have to implement it. And I'm afraid that that is happening to Greece now. What was agreed to over the weekend faces enormous challenges when it comes to implementation, on account not only just of economic and financial issues, but institutional aspects and, of course, political and social ones. So it's a hard slog when a certain adjustment is imposed on you and you don't own its implementation.
Well, Mohamed, Paul Krugman was on with us yesterday, who outlined some of these exact concerns, the implementation of this and what it means for Greece down the road. And Mohamed, let me just play for you part of that conversation with Krugman and what he says about the debt problems for Greece.
As long as the debt has not been written down in some way that takes it off the table, then any progress they make is just a reason now to tighten the screws further. And they need to see some kind of debt number that goes down as the economy makes a little bit of headway, and that is not happening, and it's not going to happen because they're just too deep in the hole.
So, I think Krugman makes a really good point, Mohamed, which is that any progress they make is actually going to be held against them.
And debt relief is necessary if Greece is to restore normal functioning. It's not sufficient, but is necessary. And the numbers are horrific. Debt is in excess of 170% of GDP. When all this started and there was a debt problem, debt was below 110% of GDP. And what people forget is that sustainability is a ratio. You need growth. Without growth, no matter what you try to do, your debt will get worse. And that's the big problem that Greece is in now. It cannot generate enough economic growth.
Mohamed, I want to turn your attention to the U.S. dollar. Bloomberg Markets has taken a look at the chief executives of companies in the S&P 500, asked them what is the biggest issue related to their current earnings performance. They cite the strength of the U.S. dollar. Tell us your thoughts.
So it is an issue. The dollar has moved a lot. And given the divergence in central bank policies, it is likely that the dollar will strengthen further. What I find ironic a little bit about the survey is that is actually something that companies can do something about. They can't completely offset the impact of a stronger dollar in terms of competitiveness, but they can hedge some of the impact on their profits.
On the currency risk.
Correct. So there's two elements. One is that you lose competitiveness, and that is real. But the other one also is that the translation effects can be hedged, and that's something that companies haven't been doing enough of.
They haven't, and in fact, you hear oftentimes, Mohamed, that in earnings releases they kind of use it as a crutch. But linking it back to what's going on in Europe, and even in China, Mohamed, and other hotspots, might the dollar strengthen and go even further because you now have a resolution, possible resolution, right, in Europe, and you have threats of a recession in China? Might we see the dollar continue to rise?
So economically, it's a multi-speed economy in which the U.S., despite this morning's retail sales number, continues to do better. That's going to help the dollar. In terms of central bank policies, the Fed is likely to continue to take its foot off the stimulus accelerator, while I expect the ECB will actually do more. It will certainly do more if the Greek deal unravels. If the Greek deal unravels, expect more QE out of the ECB, and that will weaken the euro versus the dollar.
Tomorrow, Janet Yellen is going to be testifying her first of
Humphrey Hawkins
exactly
testimony,
the 2-day testimony to Congress. Mohamed, what do you want? What are you listening for from Janet Yellen?
An update on the economy, in particular how she sees wage growth, and that's a key element. The Fed officials will not be comfortable about hiking rates until they see better prospects for wage growth. So that's the first issue. Second, how she sees the path for interest rate hikes. I think she will confirm the notion that this will be the loosest tightening in the history of the Fed. And finally, she's got to battle a lot of political issues. This is a Congress that is much more intrusive, or is seeking to be much more intrusive in Fed affairs than previous Congresses. So she's going to be playing defense on the political front.
Mohamed, yesterday, Ruchir Sharma, the head of emerging markets at Morgan Stanley, he said that China could tip the world into a recession. What's your reaction?
It could, but it won't. So the scenario for tipping the world into recession is trying to lose controls of its financial system, not just the stock market, but also its shadow banking system, and that causes a major setback to the Chinese economy, which then translates to a major setback to the global economy. It's a possibility, but I do not think it's a probability. I think China has a lot of tools to avert that. Now, it's not very neat in the sense that they are retarding their march towards economic liberalization, but they can maintain control of their economy, and they can limit the spillover effects to the rest of the world.
Okay, they could, but it won't happen.
Right.
That's the word.
One side, Ruchir Sharma, the other side, Mohamed El-Erian.
All right.